So we have a great group of panelists here today, and I'm so excited we're doing this. This was the part of the day I was really looking forward to, so we could hear the nuts and bolts from real people in the field doing this to their own homes and in new homes that they are building. So first I'd like to introduce Lindsay Joy, who used to be a former colleague of mine. So she's a longtime Palo Alto resident who had a 30-year plus career in energy management. She was the City of Palo Alto Utilities solar guru for many, many years, until she decided to retire on us and become a world traveler and naturalist with the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. And if you sign up for a hike with them, you may get lucky and have Lindsay be your docent. She has lived in her current home for 27 years, of which the last 5 have been all electric. And next, I'd like to introduce James Sheridan. He and his wife, Claudine, are Mountain View residents who found it remarkably easy and cost-effective to electrify their home during a remodel they started in 2014. Claudine has a graduate degree in mathematics, and James works as a scientist developing new treatments for disease. So neither of them is an energy geek, and they don't have experience working in the energy industry or in construction. Initially, they merely wanted to install solar panels on the roof of their remodeled home, but once they started exploring options, James and Claudine realized that as they phased out appliances, it was roughly cost neutral to replace gas appliances with electric. They had their gas lines removed in 2015. And then Luke Morton, we've worked together a lot too. He's a sustainability manager at FGI. I'm not going to bother pronouncing it, but it's one of the leading architecture firms in Palo Alto. They build a lot of really fancy homes. But he has also worked at the U.S. Green Building Council in Washington, D.C., supported the creation of carbon-based standards incorporated into LEED criteria, and at the Rocky Mountain Institute, he worked on evaluating the effectiveness of smart thermostats. He's inspected homes and buildings as a HERS rater and energy auditor, and has led many classes at the City of Palo Alto focusing on building science and green building. Luke is a renter, but don't despair, he has figured out ways to electrify. And lastly, our panelist is Mohan Mahal. I have met him recently. And he is actually one of the longest heart transplant survivors at Stanford. Who now, 25 years ago, he was given a second chance. And guess what he decided to do with his life? He has decided to devote his life towards saving energy and saving the earth. And he is the founder and CEO of Sidco Homes, which stands for Sustainable, Innovative Design and Construction, which builds net zero passive inspired homes, and his projects save over 80% energy compared to conventional homes and do not use fossil fuels for heating or cooling. His goal is to build cost-effective passive inspired homes and fill the need for affordable housing. So these are our panelists, and last but not least, let me introduce Sean Armstrong. In college, he lived in a zero net energy student house, and it was a life-changing experience for him, and he has never looked back. Today, Sean is one of the country's foremost electrification experts and leading ZNE building designer. He is co-founder of a company called Redwood Energy, which is a ZNE design firm that focuses, again, on low-income subsidized housing, and has led the design of more than 5,000 solar-powered residences, of which 2,300 are all electric and 100% solar power. He successfully disconnected the gas line to his house in 2017, and we are so fortunate to have him here today. Yay! And so we will have each of our panelists do a short presentation, but I will hand this over to you, Sean.
All right. So my responsibility is to moderate, and I think that just means that we're going to have Lindsay and James. Do you guys have the same house? No, different homes.
Yeah. New construction.
Got it. So why don't you take it off?
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, that's all I'm going to do.
Thanks you
Later on,
guys, thanks you guys for staying.
Water.
It's a small room, so hopefully we can take a lot of questions. Yeah, I've been in the energy industry so long that we used to call it net zero, and now it's zero net, so I don't know, it's just a term change. Anyway, Lindsay Joy, former utility engineer, solar program manager, recently retired. And so my Palo Alto Electric Home story began in 1991 when my husband and I bought a tiny 700 square foot cottage in Palo Alto's Ventura neighborhood. And after having 2 children, I got a little cozy, so we added on 500 square feet in the mid-90s. But it took us until about 5 years ago to be able to do that extensive remodeling project we wanted to do to fulfill our dream to live in a sustainably designed zero net energy home. And so that's what I wanted to share my experience with you over the last 5 years. And I knew even 5 years ago that we should really try to see if we could remove the gas meter and go all electric. It was still considered pretty radical to do that at the time, and we had some homework that we had to do before we embarked on our project. Well, that was my home, by the way, on Park Boulevard. If you bicycle, you probably have bicycled by it. Okay, so the main challenge, cooking. And in our family, my husband is the cook, and he was really reluctant to give up gas for cooking. He didn't know about induction, of course. Many people don't know about it until they've experienced it. Luckily, we had a friend who invited us over to let us cook up some dishes, and he tried it out, and he saw how quickly it responded when he changed the power levels. And of course, I liked it because it's really easy to clean, and it's quiet, and it's safe. You can cook on paper. The paper doesn't catch fire. You can have, elderly people or just distracted people like myself or children be able to get nearby, and you don't have to worry about the safety issues. You've already heard about those benefits. So we're really happy with the cooktop after 5 years of cooking. I don't think I've burned anything yet, because as soon as it seems to get too hot, I quickly turn it down and it immediately responds. So we're very happy with that. And it's just so quiet. You don't have to run that fuel head like you really need to do every single time you cook with gas. And a lot of people say, well, if there's a power outage, you won't be able to cook. It's like, well, you really shouldn't be running your gas stove during a power outage, because you won't be able to use your fume hood and get rid of those toxins. And we did bring a magnet to the store and bought some new and used cookware. Cast iron works great, by the way. So that's what we have on the side here. Over there, under the white paper, is actually a cast iron grill. Okay, so the most elaborate and expensive component of our project was our heat pump. We got a combination heat pump that makes hot water for both radiant floor space heat and domestic use. And the equipment is got multiple components, thank you. So there's a picture of me with our rather large heat pump. It's located in our side yard. We had to make a special place for it in our remodeling project. It's not super wide or deep, but it's certainly tall. And the other components are located inside, and we tuck them underneath our stairs. And we have the hot water heater here, the storage tank, I mean, and we have a lot of pumps and valves. We have 4 different heating zones in our 2,000 square foot home. And we're pretty happy with the radiant floor. It's super comfortable. It wasn't cheap, but our cats certainly like it, and so far performance has done very well over the last 5 years. Okay, there I am with some of my friends. We helped do a solar system for our all-electric home. And as the solar program manager, I was asked over many years of my career, do you have solar on your home? Because you're helping me, figure out if solar's right for me, as my customers would call, and I'd say, not yet, I'm waiting to do a major remodel. I don't want to put a solar system on an old roof and then have to tear it down. So this is a 28-foot high roof peak. It's metal standing seam. It was slippery and scary, but we used a nonprofit organization to help do the installation. And that kept costs down, and they also provide job training, which is appreciated. So these were some of the specs. It's 7 kilowatts, 24 modules. We have a redwood tree that we had to deal with, and we didn't have any, of course, consumption history because it's a brand new home. So we decided to max out the number of modules on the roof, and we selected micro inverters, which are very good if you have to deal with partly shaded roof. And so we've been very pleased with with the system and the performance to date. Here's a graph of last June 21st, and you can see that little dip. You know, the red dots show what we should have gotten if we didn't have shading, but of course we have a lovely redwood tree that we would never tear down or cut down, so that's the impact of shading last June. And I'll just conclude quickly with just a second. Let me finish and then I can ask, because this is my last slide. So this is our annual net energy consumption for our home. It's solar systems provided 95% of our annual energy needs, and we're very, very pleased to be living our dream in a net zero, almost nearly net, as I call it, nearly net zero energy count. So, and now I'm happy to answer any questions about my slides.
What are the X and Y axes on that chart you showed?
Before, so we've got power, which is wattage. So every, I think, 15 minutes or hourly, I'm not sure what the granulation is for time. And then you've got the time of day, so from midnight to midnight. And you can see, you know, the peaks around noon for the summer solstice. So that is solar electricity produced on one day.
Thank you.
Yes?
I'm really curious, what is that first peak there?
Because up and down and back up at 6, 7 a.m.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Someone else could help me figure that out. We do have, let's see, on the next day, it doesn't, yeah.
Shows up sometimes.
You have shading.
I guess it's something else besides the redwood tree, because our redwood tree is like 10 a.m. to 11 to almost 12. So it must be maybe another, yeah, either the neighbor's house. I haven't analyzed on the.
It could be a reflection off someone else's window.
Yeah. It might be a cloud.
Cloud effect is, yeah, it's, you can see it on some of the other, this is the rest of the week, you can see it on a few other days too, so. Now you're gonna have to go up on the roof and figure that out. Okay, thank you very much, and we can do more questions afterwards.
Cool, yay!
So my name's James Sheridan. I'm a Mountain View resident. My wife and I electrified our home beginning with a remodel we started in 2014. We took out our, had PG&E, no cost to us, asked them to disconnect the gas pipe in 2015.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, absolutely, sorry. So first slide, I'm just going to go through some of the appliances, show and make the argument that it was really very easy to do. I think it's roughly cost neutral. I'm going to show some of my numbers and you can price it out for your own system. So first slide, I have a button right here and I push the right side. And that was not the right one. Let's see, the glasses are terrible.
Or just say next slide.
Yeah, next slide, or if you want. So on the right side is our solar system. I think starting point might be that. That was our first big purchase. I strongly encourage people to get competitive bids. This is just a commodity. I went with this particular company for two factors. One, they make a product that's that all black. That doesn't look like a 1950s erector set. And the other thing is this vendor's product has been shown to hold up very age well, continue high output over the years. In the middle is shown, we decided to both go heat pump, and that's what that is. So it's kind of like your refrigerator. It's got a unit in the winter that is somehow capturing high energy molecules in your around your home and pumping them inside the house, like a refrigerator in reverse. And then in the summer, the unit on the bottom is kind of similar type of structure, and it does the opposite, pumps that energy out of the house. The big push for a big cell for the maybe electrifying your house might be improving just the quality of the environment. We used to open our windows throughout the summer. In Mountain View, that works fine for just about maybe except for 12 nights a year, cools the house down. However, after doing the AC, it's cooler in our house, the windows are closed, the house is safer, There's less dust. I, more importantly, spend a lot less time cleaning surfaces, vacuuming. I estimate 10, 12 hours a month reduced cleaning after AC. On the far left is a heat pump driven water heater. So the last commodity we bought before going completely all electric was to take out the existing electrical water heater, and just the next purchase was one that has that unit on the top that is a heat pump similar to like the heat pump that heats our house. Next slide. We got induction oven. You heard from Lindsay. I wasn't familiar with this. My wife was. I can imagine going back after the convenience of induction oven. But we still grill in the backyard occasionally whenever we wanted to use gas. Next slide. So here are some of the prices for my system. It was roughly $21K for the solar system. It had this. You also had to have this inverter installed next to my meter. I'm going to get a couple more panels soon added to my system because we may have another electric car soon. And this newer system will have same vendor, 30% more output for the same size panels. The panels are about the same cost. The inverter will be an item that will be underneath each panel, so it won't even have this separate unit to install or break down. There's the cost of my water heater. I didn't want to buy a Tesla in 2014. I've never spent that much money on a car. The price of those electric vehicles just keeps falling with each month. I'm really happy with the one I would eventually get last year. Next slide. Oh yeah, that's a Volt. It's not made anymore. I guess enough of you didn't like it.
Well, that's not the reason they closed the plant. They want to make big cars, not small cars.
So like I said, you can cost it out yourself. When I come up with my various numbers of, say, on the right I'm illustrating, you know, my system costs roughly $39,000. Everything you just saw except for the car. If I put that in the stock market, I estimate that money would grow $4,700 a year roughly. I'd pay some amount of interest. I could deduct some of that theory based on if it was all covered by my mortgage. But I'm no longer buying gas for my car. I don't buy gas or electric to heat the water, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's about cost neutral by my calculations at today's prices. The part that is not is the $39K capital equipment sunk cost. That, with inflation, will eventually be eaten away. I think if I sold the house, if I've made purchases that are quality purchases, I think I could get that cost back. Any questions?
Where do you get a heat pump water heater for $1,000?
They cost $1,200 now. Like if you just go to a big box, they're $1,200.
That was a big box purchase.
Okay, my name's Luke. My role here, is mostly, since I work here locally, I can represent some of the projects I work on. There's a lot of new single-family construction, also a number of renovations, but all mostly within Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Atherton area. So it's mostly going to be some pretty pictures and some bullet points of examples. I'll have a few comments of my own to comment on my renting lifestyle. Let's see, next, there we go. Introduction, all right, I did my introduction. All right, here's our first pretty picture example, nice Spanish colonial mission house. This is an all-electric house. It's Stuart Bernstein's house. Many of you have probably seen this before. But he is net zero energy. He's Passive House certified. He's got all the plaques and such. And he was adamant about having the simplest system possible. Of course, simplicity is in the eye of the beholder, but he has an air-to-water heat pump for all, a single diagonal thermal unit for all of his domestic hot water and space heating and space cooling. So he's got a radiant heating and cooling system. I'll show you a picture of that. Well, actually, here's one of the hallways. You can't really see where it is, but if you look, is there a laser on this thing? No, right in the middle. We'll see pictures of this later, but it's actually in the ceiling. His house is so efficient, so well insulated, that really he needs cooling most of the year when the house is closed up, and he barely needs to heat it at all in the wintertime, that it can really heat itself based on body heat and its own internal lights and internal heat gains. So that's why they preferred focusing on cooling for this project. Here's an example of one of those hydronic panels that goes on. You have to really coordinate your lights and such, but it is totally available, ready to do. You know, it's something, it's pretty fancy. You know, I would say, I'll have a comment to this at the end, but most of my projects don't do this. I'm just kind of showing you that it's possible. Here is his rather toothsome picture of an induction cooktop. Nice, clean, flat surfaces. He monitored every single circuit in his home. And actually, he found that the standby loads on this particular induction cooktop were not to his liking. And he made sure the president of that company knew. And he was former head of clean tech for Goldman Sachs, so they took his phone call. Project number 2, this is all electric, off-grid capable. This is a 5 years old project, and they have a full 80 kilowatt-hour battery backup system. I guess they did, and they have the same basic electronic radiant heating and cooling system. Passive house design, just a different look on it. I think the focus here. Here's our picture of our blower door. We had in high performance walls. We have a really good insulation system on this. We left this blower door unit, which is how we test the air sealing of the home. It was a very complex home, so we left that in for about a good month while we sealed up all the holes and penetrations that the subcontractors made on the project to make sure it was an efficient envelope. Here's the laundry room. The story I have about this is the client actually just really liked condensing dryers, just simple condensing dryers, and you know, they take a little bit longer. I personally own one. I have a combo unit. I don't find it takes really any longer at all. But she said, well, if there's any issue with that, she'll just buy 2 of them. And you know, she does all the housekeeping and laundry for the house, and you know, she just sort of switches off. And it's not shown here, but she has the drying rack in this room that's sort of installed and built in. Yes? Question? A condensing dryer does not, it evaporates the water out of your clothes and then condenses it into a plumbing drain, and it does not heat up like a blast furnace of air and evaporates the clothes and need to suck a large amount of air out of your house to exhaust all the moisture. And the moisture would be then contained in the air stream that you're exhausting out of the house. That's how most dryers, at least here in this country, works.
Does it do that with the heat pump?
Some heat pumps, Sean might know the answer to this better. I've seen some heat pumps. Do some heat pumps do condensing?
Yeah, like a condenser, a compressor, it's using a refrigerant cycle, which inherently will create moisture. So this condensing washer dryer is super cool because it's a combo. It's a washer and a dryer. You know, it's stick it in, pull it out.
This one is that.
It's just heat pump dryer.
I'm not sure. This might be just a condensing dryer, like a European.
Well, condensing versus heat pump, they have about a 20 degree different temperature.
Yeah.
I apologize, I cannot explain clearly. While they're both using a condensing cycle, they've got a compressor in there, they're doing that work. I'm not clear why a heat pump dryer is 20 degrees warmer than a condensing dryer. Do you have a thought?
No, I have a question about the PV.
Okay, because so that's your answer is they're about the same thing, but they're not the same. Close.
My condensing unit uses the cold water supply as a source of cold to condense the water out of the clothes, and so I'll hear it draw water from the cold water and just sort of sips it throughout the drying cycle, and then uses that to condense.
So it uses less energy, basically.
Yeah, actually I've measured mine, it uses about a kilowatt hour or and a half per drying cycle, or for a total cycle. So most dryers are 5 kW, they work with that. So that's double or triple the amount of energy for that cycle.
Question about solar.
Yeah.
What was the reason for the 20 kW
They wanted it.
8,000 square foot.
They also they wanted to be off grid and they're off grid islandable, so they actually have an islandable inverter. So you know the PG&E or Palo Alto, the blackouts pervade here. They will be the most popular house in the block. They will have a party. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually threw a party and just invited everyone over for dinner.
It'd be so much cooler than what just happened up in Humboldt, where the power goes out and everyone rushes to grocery stores and gas lines.
Yeah.
It wasn't nearly as cool as that. If you're going off grid in the wintertime, when there's 1/5 as much sunshine as there is during the summer solstice, you do need to double or triple your solar array if that's your goal, is Christmas time off grid, because you don't have as much sunshine by 2 or 3 or 4 fold. So that might have been why they upsized the array far beyond what the house would need.
It wasn't
for its annual needs.
They also have a couple of electric vehicles that they were covering as well. So they did it because, yeah, I think they wanted to. They had the roof space for it, essentially, and they were going for a self-consumption model. Yeah, sorry.
What's the state of the art on the battery backup? What's the? I mean, 80 is big.
Maybe let me finish. I'll finish my presentation. That's a deeper dive, I think. This is my last slide. Projects. I did a sort of audit of my projects, and first thing that came to mind, a lot of my clients are not necessarily oriented towards electrification, but when I try to bring up the issue as often as I can. But what I'm already seeing is electrification is already standard practice for these really high-end fancy homes, largely because natural gas equipment just doesn't serve them as well. Heat pumps are fundamentally, they get all the zoning that they want out of their house, but they don't have to install redundant radiant floor systems with AC systems. They can just get it all out of a VRF heat pump, which are really revolutionizing the industry. The heat pump water heaters they're newer to the market, to my end of the market, but they're becoming standard because they have storage involved, and so they're truly instantaneous heaters. Tankless water heaters are the opposite of instantaneous because they take several seconds to heat up.
Up to 15.
Yeah.
To get the water hot, and then it's coming.
I live with one. I'll comment on that, and I hate it. My tankless. Laundry already been electric. Few people do gas dryers anymore, just as the codes are more complex and it's more expensive, and electric dryers are just easier to do, and frankly safer. Radiant systems, I still see radiant floors and radiant ceilings, but I would say because of the advent of kind of tight construction and the fact that radiant floors work really well in a poorly insulated house. I used to live in a house in Atherton that was built 50 years ago. Radiant floors were lovely. There was no insulation in the walls or the ceiling, floor to ceiling single pane glass. In a new modern home, you're not going to get that sensible temperature out of your floor. Or if you really did heat up the floor to 80 degrees, your house would be just a sauna. So, radiant floors don't have that visceral feeling anymore in an efficient home. Fireplaces, they still see them sometimes, but the client really needs to want them and understand that there's an opportunity cost for that. Are they going to just have that fireplace sitting there 363 days a year, never on, with a big hole through the roof? And I've been to a number of projects recently where the clients they have it in their living room. Like, in the wintertime it gets cold. And I'm like, yeah, that's because there's a hole and you're sitting right by the fireplace. Like, can we just close that up? I'm like, yeah, by all means, shut it down. Like, there's chimney balloons you can install. There's all sorts of ways you can sort of close up that hole. They're never running these things in their really tight insulated houses. And then I'm also seeing pool heat pump water heating. Sean's presented on that, but there's a project not far from here that has a large pool, and they have heat pumps for the pool, and it works. According to the builder, who is also my employer, says it works just great.
Yeah.
No complaints. So, I was going to comment really quickly. I thought this is my last slide. Here is my renter. As a renter, I've got a gas cooktop. I just bought a cheap induction cooktop on Amazon, and voila, I'm electrified. I will say, I use this for about 80, as a family, we use this about for 80% of our cooking. We do occasionally use these. We have a wok, you know. Eventually when I get the house, if I'm able to buy the house, I will change this out for an induction. A note, actually, my wife prefers electric resistance cooking. She was like, and it's like, all right, I can get one of those too. She finds the induction too responsive. So she's like, no, I want it to like cool down slowly, okay? I mean, I can add some mass. I like just get a thicker cast iron on that thing, you know? Another thing I would say is I find that notion of like people worrying about their cookware, I think that's a little overblown in my personal opinion. There's one pot we have that is not ferromagnetic, and I have a little induction insert, so it turns my induction into a little hot plate. And then I put that little pot right on top and it works just fine. No big deal. And most other, I did a survey of my mother's and my aunt's cookware, all induction ready. They were worried about it. I was like, oh, no, let's get a magnet. Oh look, this one works. They have like 2 that don't, and it's out of like 20. It's not, that's my 2 cents, not a big deal. All right, that's it. There's one quick question and I want to move on.
I just was curious, what's the price range on that insert that you were just talking about?
The insert?
For the induction cooker?
It was a while ago. It was like 20 bucks, 30 bucks. I mean, it's just like a piece of metal. It's pretty straightforward. I could even put the pan in one of my larger cast iron pans and just like do it that way.
Question about the most efficient backup power or power pack.
We're going to have hopefully we're having enough time to get into more questions.
We'll get down to that right now.
Vehicle to building. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
Come on.
Luke, I think maybe you guys could switch.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Presentation?
But I can just stand and talk from here, that's fine. I can just move up over here in the front, that's fine. So my name is Mohan Mahal, and as you know indicated, I'm very passionate about building energy efficient home. If any one of you were kind of given a second chance to live, and you think twice in your life, what would I do different if I've been given a second chance to live? And I decided that, I have given this opportunity to live twice thanks to Stanford and the donor that has given me the life again first. So without that, I would not be here. 25 years ago, I had a heart transplant here at Stanford. And I was totally convinced that I do not want to do what I was doing before in my life. But it took me 10 years to get to the point where the spark came up in my mind and said, what am I going to do? Why am I living here? What is my goal? What is my objective? And I began to question all by myself. And then one day I said, you know what? I traveled back to India, and here I'm going to show you some of the slides, Next. So I was born and raised in India, and I lived in Delhi. It is the most polluted city in the world. I was raised there. And living over there, I knew what the pollution is like. And when I visited back over there were just about so many families that I talked to, they all had issues with asthma and other issues, of polluted cities, respiratory systems. And then the number of people that have died in India because of the pollution was very, very high. And to me, it just kind of struck something in my mind. I can really help control. Right after that, I ended up going to Paris in Germany, and I learned all about passive homes. I got a chance to meet Dr. Feist. Next slide, please. I got a chance to meet Dr. Feist, and Dr. Feist kind of explained me, Mohan, the most important thing when we build homes is to conserve energy. And right now, I'm building a passive home in the city of Palo Alto, And this was the particle count of air in Delhi when you kind of really look at it. So immediately after, we have a festival in Delhi called Diwali. And if you look at the particle count, we are supposed to be right at the bottom of that line, But we are totally way up into the extremely unhealthy air at that point, Next slide. So when I came back and I looked at it, the pollution was not an only issue with Delhi and Shanghai. We have also had pollution here in Los Angeles area, and then this is what we look like in the Bay Area during the time we had the fires in Paradise. So we all have experienced what the life has been like living in Delhi for all the time, every day. This is what we had experienced over there. So we all know the impact of the pollution on climate change, and that's why we decided to kind of build more energy efficient homes. Next, please. And this is the chart that shows, you know, how the pollution kind of went up here, even in the Bay Area, and after the Camp Fire. So the pollution level in San Francisco were higher than those who were in Delhi at that time. You know. Next, please. So what did I do? I came back and I started saying that I want to start building homes which are going to be net zero and energy efficient. So my first home that was done was in Menlo Park and the Willow Glen area. So this is in San Jose and I'm doing one in Menlo Park. The house in Willow Glen was marketed with Tesla. That was the first house that I decided to do, all energy efficient. I bought the solar panels from Solar City in those days. I brought in a Tesla and I marketed the house that whosoever buys this house will get a Tesla and I will pay for the lease of the Tesla for 2 years. Got sold in 2 weeks. That was a good thing, you know. But this was a hybrid home. It had the gas and electric appliances at that time, you know. Next, please. This is a house that we have converted from a 2-bedroom house to, with the addition. City of Palo Alto or City of San Jose would allow you to do up to 500 square feet addition over a easy, over the counter kind of permitting process. So this house was 100% electric. We had the solar panels on it, and we used all electric appliances. There's the induction cooktop in there. The whole house was taken down to the stud level, and it was built with passive inspired net zero home. So it was sprayed foam insulation on the inside, sprayed foam insulation in the attic. There is no furnace in this house. It's got the heat pump on the outside, and it was very, very comfortable. So my heating and cooling for this house was all done with the heat pump technology that Sean's talked about, and it's readily available right now. When we got the score on the house, go back to the next slide, yeah. When we got the score on the house, we did an energy audit on the house with the door blower test and all the things. The results were like 10 out of 10, you know. So it was amazing, energy efficient house built with these features in there. Not using a lot of electricity, and then definitely the energy cost was relatively low. We decided to market the house, and we got, next please. So this is the heat pump on the house, and we did the heating and cooling with Mitsubishi. The air quality inside this house was the most critical part for me, because I started off with air pollution. I probably got impacted because of the air pollution. I'm living my life trying to make sure that we can cut down on the air pollution. And that's the key thing, So it's the comfort and air cooling things. So our air level was less than 10 in the house, and we just have just a blower with a filtration system put into it, This is 100% electric home, And we did use the, water heater, technology just to kind of use a tankless water rate in this house because the plumbing was already done. But in the future, we do not do that, The good thing is that once we marketed the house, it got sold for $130,000 over the asking price. That means for all the contractors who are building homes, if you go 100% electric, believe me, there's a market for it. Once people understand what you have built, they all come looking for these things. And you can convert your existing homes completely into net zero homes, and it is a lot more, cost-wise, it's not as expensive as you think it may be, So it is doable, But at the same time, next please, I'm working with bone structure now, and I'm building a passive house in the city of Palo Alto. Some of you who might have driven by on Park Boulevard, the house on the right is the house that we are currently building in Palo Alto. It's going to be a passive house that we talked about, the technology over here. It's going to be completely insulated. It's going to be airtight, and it's going to have triple pane windows, The heating and cooling in this house is Masana, which is because I only need 20% of the energy to heat and cool the house. So Masana is a radiant heating and cooling system that we use for this house, you know, and it's very, very efficient. We build a separate mechanical room for it, you know, and I hope that we can, you know, finish this house in the next 2 to 3 months. We are just waiting for some permitting process from the city of Palo Alto, you know. And the bone structured house on the left-hand side it was built by Mark Jacobson, and that's also a bone structured house. Bone structure uses all steel construction, you know. It's very strong. It has some advantages over building with wood. It allows you to do very large windows and things like that, but you just have to pay a little premium price for it also. But I support bone structure to kind of get a passive house done. And this will be the first bone structure passive house certified, you know, that we're trying to go with. Next, please. Looking at keeping the energy efficiency in my mind. So what we are doing is I'm building another house in Hollister, and keeping in mind that there's fires over there, we're building with 6 structurally insulated panels, and they're going to be built with MGO panels. These are fire retardant. They will not catch fire. They're fire resistant. They're mold resistant. They're termite resistant. And energy efficiency level will be just to the level of basically building as a passive inspired net zero home, you know. And the future, next please. In the future that we are looking at to be able to keep the housing, you know, industry more energy efficient and to have the least amount of impact on the CO2 in the environment, we are looking at using GFRG. GFRG is a glass fiber reinforced gypsum that's being used in Europe and Australia, and we would like to bring that technology to this country someday. And that is a lot more economical. You can make panels out of it, and the homes will be kind of built in a modular way. You will have the panels come in, and you just put them in place, and it'll be much faster to do that, you know. But I'm convinced that I'm going to continue to do this, and I hope I can do some benefit to this environment and the people. So our goal and the motto is thoughtfully build homes with people and planet in mind, you know. And once again, I want to thank the donor for this gift of life. Thank you very much. Q&As.
So I'm moderating here specifically, and first thing, yeah, come on up. So this is for you though. Do you have questions? How can we help you?
On the water heaters, they're just like barely in the consciousness of most installers. Like I had to get a new one, and I talked to one contractor, and he like scared me out. So what's the uptake gonna be in the next little while?
I think Hiromi or Christine could speak to that too.
I'll take a stab at it. So there's the California Building Decarbonization Coalition, which has A.O. Smith and Rheem and the other ones involved in it. They have all these manufacturers have agreed to a certain time frame, which our goal is. Basically, 50% of all water heaters will be heat pumps in about 5 years by sales. That's the goal. 100% by 2030. You know, you'd be like, well, okay, so I remember in 1998 when I was being offered a free cell phone by my employer, and I'm like, really? You think those are, I mean, we really need that? I mean, there's payphones everywhere, and really? And things change, don't they? Sometimes much more quickly than you can realize. So, hard to know, but the ambition is as fast as humanly possible. And so, and how that comes out is Rheem and A.O. Smith, they used to say things like, we only sell 1% as heat pump water heaters. What's the big deal? Why are you guys pushing us so hard? That's not what they say anymore. Now they understand that is their future market. And now they're not at 1%, they're at 3%. So 300% growth in a couple of years. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how exponential growth curves happen. And we see them time and again all over the world. Start slow, rapidly accelerate.
So who's training the contractors?
For heat pump water heaters?
Yeah.
Well, the plumbing tradespeople generally get trained by their labor unions, if they have a labor union that they're working with. That's the best place that tradespeople get trained is in the training academies that the unions offer. If you're not union trained, then you have a problem. Like, who is training you? It's probably just...
I could speak to that as well. You know, if you talk to any of the manufacturers, they're more than happy to train the plumbers. We had some amazing plumbers here today. I think that, you know, the market, like you said, in the beginning it may be slow, but it'll go like this. I think the distribution centers are off, like the big, can't think of the names right now.
Oh, it's like
Like the Fergusons and Pace, where the plumbers go and get their materials, offer trainings as well. And I've talked to both the midstream and the OEMs, the manufacturers, and they're all about wanting to train. Now, we have to get the plumbers excited. The plumbers will get excited when the consumers start demanding this. And it's not hard to install. Any plumber that's installed one will say, oh, not a big deal. I just need an electrician to do the electrical. Yeah,
so
it's not a big deal.
really the
I swapped out my electric water heater and put in my heat pump water heater myself with the handyman.
See? I do wanted to bring up this one major adoption issue for heat pump water heaters is the electrical circuit. So most plumbers don't do electrical work and electricians don't do plumbing work. So what we've been advising our customers is if you are doing any electrical work in your house, if you're putting in a solar rooftop system, if you're putting in an EV charger, put the conduit into your water heater so that it's ready, and when your water heater is about to go out, you can just call up the plumber, and any plumber can put in a heat pump water heater. Any plumber can put in a gas water heater, any plumber can put in a regular electric resistance water heater. Those plumbers can put in a heat pump water heater. But the circuit needs to be there and needs to be ready. So if anyone is considering doing a heat pump water heater in the future when your water heater dies, just get that conduit done. And it doesn't cost that much. If you already have an electrician on site, you should be able to get that circuit done for under $200.
More good news is that Palo Alto's utility in about a year will be incentivizing what we're calling retrofit ready heat pump water heaters that are plug-in ready, 120 volt, use about 1100 watts, the same that a hairdryer would use on medium. Rheem is building them right now. They've got them with their staff trying them out. A.O. Smith is developing it. HTP/Ericsson already has it over in Europe, and they've been testing it with their Atlanta office. Within 1 year, we will have more than one manufacturer offering a heat pump water heater that does not require an electrician. So we're almost there. Yes, in the orange, and then in the black shirt.
So Mohan, I just have to ask you a question about your SIP.
SIPs.
I'm sorry. So what is
MGO-SIP?
So MGO is a material that is fire resistant, and SIP is structurally insulated panels, you know. SIPs are very commonly used for building passive homes, but usually they would have a material what is called OSB or plywood on the outside. And OSB would still burn, you know, in case of a fire. So MGO is magnesium oxide panel. It's half-inch thick. It's just like kind of concrete, you know, and it's like hardy back. So the panels are made with hardy back and insulation 6 inches in between. You know.
So you still use insulation with those?
Oh yes, we still use insulation in them. You know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then you with the black jacket.
So will the city tell us when what you were saying is ready in a year?
Yeah, the city, I assume, because you guys, the utilities are here, you guys send out flyers and notices of your rebates, and you have a website that has them available.
Absolutely.
So multiple.
And I think all the
plug-in one is
cities and
ready.
CCAs and, yes, are working on programs like this. And we tend to use our web pages as the first line of communication. But yes, if you're interested, please check our web pages.
So one thing I would recommend, you know, when it gets down to the cities, because, you know, usually when the water heater goes down, it's like an emergency. I need it tomorrow, you know. So a lot of plumbers will go and get a permit for installing the water heater, but most of them don't. But if they go to the city to get a permit for replacing it with a water heater that is gas, they should give them good incentive and a good program and good information about switching it right away to electric water heaters, you know. And I think so that'll be a good opportunity to do at that time.
You're welcome. To add to that, these heat pump water heaters are planned to be incentivized by PG&E, SCE, et cetera, so that they're less expensive than any other option.
Yes.
So they're on the truck,
Great.
and they're the cheapest water heater possible.
Yes.
They're doing it's called upstream incentives, and that's the goal, so that all of you have a plumber who's willing to put it in. It's retrofit ready, and it's the cheapest one available.
Yes.
Like, we've been working on this for a couple of years. Like, what are all the problems? We have to solve them all. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to kind of put it out there as homeowners.
Even if you aren't ready for a heat pump water heater, your water heater is going to fail, right? And if you thought about this ahead of time, if you found a contractor who works with the latest technologies, willing to work with the heat pump, if you know an electrician is willing to come out and do a small job, if you have to install electrical before the new ones are ready, set it up now when you've got time as a project, because how many days do you want to go without hot water? For most people, it's 1, maybe 2. So do your research ahead of time. When you get a big pot of water under your water heater, you call up the various people and you're ready to go.
Yes, sir.
So how does it work when the new water heaters come that require a regular plug, you said, right?
Yeah.
Then you get 1/4 of the energy that you would get today.
I see what you're saying. So the heat pump water heater right now, to your point, uses about 500 watts total when the compressor is running. When it has electric resistance elements backing it up, it boosts it up to 2,500 watts or 4,000 watts, depending upon the product. So the next version that's coming in is supposed to have only a heat pump operating, since it'll still be like a 400 to 500 watt device. And it's going to be running water at 140 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit stored, not 125. The consequence of that is that you have more heat stored. And that task basically, like, we're going to have the same amount of volume of water or less that'll be a higher temperature is how it's being balanced. And the retrofit ready heat pump water heaters, some of them are going to be 65 gallons, some are going to be 80 gallons, and they're appropriate for garages, and other ones are going to be for on-demand.
Yes.
And so we need to have small ones, and those are going to be like 20 and 30 gallon products. You can take 2 showers with a 20-gallon water heater. You can take 3 showers with a 30-gallon, 2.5. So you have to sort of scale it to the size of your household if you're doing a small tank. Like they do all over Europe and Asia, everywhere. 30 gallons, very common. So there will be an option that works for each person's house, but you do have to think about that.
Does the mixing valve come in it? Or
Yes, an integrated mixing valve, so it doesn't scald anybody. So it gets delivered at 125, but it's stored at 140 or 150.
Yes.
Yes, sir. In the back.
Earlier, I see one of the slides talking about the radiant heater is not as popular now.
Speak to that.
Okay, and then on the other side, I think one of those house which is built with the radiant heat. So I little confused on that.
Yeah. So the houses with pretty pictures that I happen to have pretty pictures happen to be houses with radiant heating. Indeed, I understand. I think that's the irony you're pointing out.
But those are older.
Those are older, but it was actually, the emphasis was not on radiant heating, it was on radiant cooling. And that was just, they were kind of early adopters, they were intrigued by the technology, and they wanted to do it, so that's what they did. Yeah.
Is the radiant heat actually is more energy efficient way of heating of the house?
Of the house?
Yeah.
As a general statement?
Yes.
No, I don't think it is. I know sometimes you'll see lots of articles out there saying that it is. I don't see much in the data that supports that. I think, we can talk about like the arguments from, well, you're moving around water instead of air. Air takes a lot more, is compressible and takes more energy. But in practice, no, I don't see the actual equipment, the number of pumps that are running to circulate water around the house are pretty much the same as a fan. What I think some of the comparisons in the old days used to be, well, we're comparing a radiant floor system with an old forced air system that is really leaky. And if you have a leaky radiant floor system, you have a lawsuit. So there is no such thing as a leaky radiant floor out there, because it's sort of a selection bias against that. No, now, the right answer to that is seal your ductwork. Don't let it leak.
Yeah, Lindsay.
We have two types of radiant flooring in our two-story home. So we had a slab foundation that we had tubing put in, and that's a lot of thermal mass. It holds the heat, but it takes a long time to respond to, like a programmable thermostat doesn't really work for that zone. So on our first floor, it works great for keeping the house cool in the summer with all that concrete. And then once we bring it up to temperature, when we turn our heating system on, we just let it stay at a set point of 68, 67, something like that. Upstairs, we have the warm board type of floor heating with a wooden floor, and that's just tubing in a track underneath a wood floor. And that's very quick to respond, 15 minutes. So you could be more creative with programmable thermostat as far as trying to manage your energy efficiency. So it also depends on what delivery mechanism or what distribution system you have for your radiant heating.
I'll hold it.
Maybe one more question?
Yeah, you had a couple questions. Is there anyone else that has not had a chance? Yes, in the back, please.
I have a question. What could be a efficient way to heat up a small space, like an ADU, like 500 square foot? What heating system is most recommended, most sustainable?
So I develop apartments that are about that size, and there's a variety of options, but generally what we call a PTAC, package terminal heat pump. So these are window air conditioners that work with heating also. They're, I'm not saying that they're pretty, but basically you cut a small hole in the wall then, and you put this thing in this little slot, this little plastic sleeve for it, and plug it into the wall, and that's as cheap as it comes. And it's appropriate for a small residence because it produces a relatively modest amount of heating and cooling. There are different ones, and so I have a whole page here in this booklet that you're welcome to take home. And I've got a stack here to happily send all these guides to residential electrification home with you. And I look at the one that's called the Innova, is the prettiest. It's in the top left. And it's attractive, it's from Italy, all the other ones are kind of these American-style boxes. I know, why is that? Well, I mean, we have Apple, like they did nice design, and then everyone...
That's what they do with their billions in capital.
So anyway, the Innova is coming on the market in the United States in January. It's all over Europe and Australia and Canada. It's just that we have UL listing in the United States, and most people have ETL listing, so product has to be retested. And then in California, we have additional standards for appliances unique to the rest of the country. And so they're trying to come to California first. And so it's just taking them about a half year to test and reconfigure little parts of the side so that it's compliant. But this page here is your stuff.
So it is after 7 o'clock. I looked up and thought, oh my gosh. I think we are going to have to wrap it up, but I'd like to thank Sean, first of all. I want one of those.
Yeah,
I want one of
thank you.
those.
Hey, everybody.
And I also want to thank